Okay, we've got this 8.5 horsepower Poolin Pro snowblower at the chute, or the chute that throws the snow. I've been having a problem with the cable that on this lever, where you move the chute left or right. The cable's broke on me and stretched, so I'm just sick of it now. So I'm going to try and put make it a power chute, mount a switch up here, and we're going to use this old power window motor out of a early 90s Buick, I think it is. We're going to wire that to a 12 volt battery source, similar to some of the 12 volt power tools that I use. So I can use, which I have many batteries readily available, so I'll use those 12 volt batteries to power this when I'm blowing snow. So we're just going to dream up a way to mount this motor somehow with a bracket and wire it to a rocker switch in the 12 volt source. So when we hit the rocker switch, we can move the blower left or right.
Alright, so in order to test the power window motor that we got here, I have just a power supply here that has positive and negative hooked up to the outlet there, and tested here with my multimeter, positive and negative, and I have about 12.5 volts, so that'll work. And I'm going to wire up this rocker switch, 5-prong rocker switch, to test and see if I can go up or down, which would be here, like left or right. And I'll show you how to wire that. I have a wiring diagram just right here, simple wiring diagram. The two on the outside go to the positive and negative on the motor itself. The middle one comes from the positive on the battery, and then the two right there go to ground. So we'll test that, I'll wire that up and then show you and see if it works. Alright, so if we wire this up just from the power source itself and wire it up so positive is on one side and negative is on the other, and then switch the source of the power, then it'll rotate the opposite direction. So right now it's rotating clockwise, and if we hook it up the other way, it'll be rotating counterclockwise. And the only way to do that is with the switch itself. Okay, so I'm just going to explain real quick here how we connected this 5-prong switch with the power window motor. The two outside prongs there go to the positive and negative on the motor itself. Those are the two outside ones, and then the two in from that, those both go to the ground, and that's grounded right to the negative on the power source, and then the one at the middle is the positive from the power source. So we're gonna bench test this before we put it on the snowblower and see if it works. Okay, so we're gonna test the switch, and I'll go in both directions, and you can see the motor go clockwise and counterclockwise. So here's one direction, it's counterclockwise, and then the other direction, clockwise. So we know that that wiring is gonna work in that way, and then we'll wire it up the same way on the snowblower. Right, so in order to connect the gear to the shaft on the chute, we have a coupler that's going to go over top of two nuts here, and then we have a nut here that we're going to weld to the gear itself here that spins, and then those nuts are going to fit inside this coupler that we got at Princess Auto, and that coupler fits directly over top of those nuts. We'll be able to jam it on because it's a tight fit, and then tighten the set screws, and then that should work. So here's with the nut on, hooked up to the power supply. And here's with the coupler linked on. Okay, so here's how we have the coupler hooked up to the shaft, the nut on that shaft. We have a nut on top of a nut, and this nut is tightened against that, so it's a lock nut, so that won't rotate off, and then when we turn on the motor, it should spin the chute. Okay, we're working on the fabrication of our bracket. Just about to cut the steel here. got our line here. We already have the 2 holes pre-drilled for the mount on the power window motor. Alright, so we have the first part of the bracket made. We have a piece mounted to 2 out of 3 holes on the motor. That's just a straight piece back to here, and then we're going to make a vertical piece now from here to here, and drill a hole in the back here and mount it in at least two holes there on that bracket, and then we'll be able to take the bracket off and make some sort of a cross brace so it doesn't twist too much. Alright, so we've got the 2 holes drilled in the bottom here. Now we're going to work on some sort of diagonal bracing so this thing doesn't rotate too much. It doesn't seem too bad right now, but any bracing would help a little bit.
Okay, we've got this bracket fabricated, so now we're going to remove it. Cut off this piece that's sticking out, tidy up some of the welds, sandblast it, put some black paint on it, then reinstall it. And once that's done, we'll work on installing the switch and the wiring and the power source. Okay, we got this bracket sandblasted, welded, just about to put some paint on it. Did a bit of grinding to try to make the welds look a little bit better. Never professed to be an expert welder, but that'll work. And we'll get some paint on it, we'll let that dry, and then we'll be able to mount that up. Okay, we've got this bracket sandblasted, painted now. So while that's drying, we're going to work on mounting that rocker switch. Remove the cowl that is on the handle of the snowblower, only four screws to remove that. And made a mark here. That's just plastic, so I'm just going to use a X-Acto knife, utility knife, and cut a hole out of that. And there's little clips in the side, so it should be able to clip right in, which would be a good spot for it. Alright, have the hole cut in the cowl, mounted that switch in there. So we can reattach that, mount the motor, and make the connection. Okay, now that we've got the switch installed on the snowblower, we're working on a power source for the chute. So I've got all these old rigid batteries and battery chargers. So I'm going to use these 12-volt battery charger, and I have spare 12-volt batteries. So I'm going to mount this on the snowblower somewhere, and when I want to clean out the driveway, I'll fire a charged battery in there, and that'll provide power while I'm snow blowing the driveway. So I've opened the charger, taken the circuit board, I've cut the wire, the 120 volt feed. I'm not going to use this charger for anything else now. So I've cut the feed, and then I've just I've taken here, there's a positive terminal feeding the battery and a negative terminal. So I've just figured out which circuits they were on the circuit board, soldered a wire from the positive side out the back corner of the charger, and from the negative side out the back corner of the charger, and we'll marry those up with wires that will feed the switch. Just starting to make some of the connections now. Now this rigid battery charger, I just took the 3 self-tapping screws and screwed from the back of the shroud into the bottom of the charger. I wasn't worried about hitting the circuit board or anything because it's really not in use. Only using the 2 feeds for the positive and negative pins coming out of the battery. So we've got that mounted, soldered a wire onto the positive feed coming out of the charger just to make it a little longer. Same with the negative feed, and starting to make some wires for the 5-pin rocker switch. Once we have all the wires made, then we'll mount it up, determine what the best length for them is, and then try to wrap them with some wire loom or something if we have some hanging around. Okay, so we've just finished wiring up the switch according to the instruction that I said previously, and now we've got it all attached to the motor. I'm going to neaten up the wires after, but now I've soldered everything, soldered the connections to the switch and the motor. Now we're going to test it. So here's the first test here. Right, left, and pretty quick. If it works,
Ooh, looks like that switch lights up too.